Brilyn Hollyhand founded the conservative news service, the Truth Gazette, at the ripe old age of 11. 11 years old. Hey, Keith, you know what? When you and I were 11, we were still eating paste and following the mosquito truck around on our bicycles, remember?
We didn't have a fog machine.
No.
But we were eating that paste.
Yeah, we were eating the paste, but we rode our bikes behind the mosquito fogger in Hope, Arkansas. Well, Ryland became the chairman of the RNC's new Youth Advisory Council and gave some advice on winning the youth vote to some top Republicans, including President Trump. Now, at the more mature age of 17, he's already written his first book. How about that? It's all about helping save young Americans from leftist indoctrination. The book is called One Generation Away. By now is the time to restore American freedom. Please welcome the wise beyond his years, Brilyn Hollyhand. Brilyn, it's great seeing you.
Governor, appreciate it.
I think I first met you when you were 11 years old.
Yes, sir. It was at Scott Dawson's fundraiser in Birmingham, Alabama.
Absolutely. You've got a great memory of that. But here's what I'm just stunned by. Most teenagers are not thinking about politics at all. And if they are thinking about them at all, it's usually left of center.
Sure.
What made you embrace a more conservative view of America at age 11?
Actually, it even started a little bit earlier than that. At the age of 10, it was the 2016 presidential election. I was in the 4th grade, and I turned on the TV one night, and one of those fiery debates between Trump and Hillary was on. And it kind of drew me in. It was that election cycle that pushed a lot of people away from politics. They thought that it was too divisive, and they were right. I mean, we thought 2016 was about as divisive as it could get, and look where we are now 8 years later. So I got interested then. I said, look, I think my generation has a unique opportunity to unite the country. I think coming into this, we can, kind of unite the country, get us involved. 2016 drew me in. I vividly remember having a mock election in my elementary school's library. And it's surreal because now this election, I get to vote for the first time. So it's a full circle moment. And I'm just excited to be in Nashville with you.
That's pretty cool. Now, did some of your friends, when you were 11, 12 years old, say, Brilyn, what's wrong with you, man? Let's just talk about football and girls and forget about politics. Were you kind of different than a lot of those kids?
Sure, you could say I'm different, Governor. You could say I'm a history or political nerd. I will say I'm born and raised in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Football's in my backyard. So
I bet it is.
Definitely still a lot of SEC college football.
I don't have to ask if you're Roll Tide or War Eagle. I kind of know where you're coming from.
Roll Tide, Governor.
Tuscaloosa, for sure. The book is called One Generation Away. A lot of people may not make that connection to Ronald Reagan. You do in the book.
Yes, sir.
Why?
So Reagan's famous quote is, freedom is one generation away from extinction. Governor, this book is a culmination of 7 years of traveling this great nation. 7 years of talking to as many Americans as I could, but more importantly, listening to even more of them. And Governor, what I've heard time and time again, and I know it's the same thing you've heard when you give speeches across the country, is that people don't have hope in this country. They don't have hope that their children or grandchildren or my peers are going to grow up in a generation where they can have a free America to live in and to raise their families in. And that's a sad state of affairs. So what I continuously tell my peers every time we give a speech on a college campus is, look, if you don't have hope in this great nation, I do. Why? Because I put my hope in Jesus Christ alone, not in any DC bureaucrat. And that is the message of this book, and that's where I'm trying to get it out there.
And what a wonderful reminder that ultimately human elections, and they are important. I mean, I obviously believe in them, and you do too. But we have to look beyond just who we elect, and we have to start thinking about spiritual renewal and revival in this country, because we have a moral crisis and a crisis of the conscience of so many young Americans. What kind of reaction do you get when you give a conservative message to your peers? Do they say, never thought about that before, or do they throw things at you?
So I think I've seen it firsthand on college campuses, and we're seeing it reflected in polling, that my generation is moving conservative, which is breaking the mold. I mean, for decades, since 2003, the DNC has had a strong hold on my generation when it comes to election cycles. That's changing this time, Governor. I mean, what we're seeing is, you remember, graduating high school, registering to vote, renting your first apartment, going off to college, all of these things that are big pivotal moments in life. My generation's going into that era of life under a Biden administration and a Biden economy. Governor, my generation doesn't want to grow up in an America where it's the standard to be able to send your political opponent to prison when they're beating the polls. We don't want to grow up in an America where it's standard to be able to kick your political opponent off the ballot when they're beating you in the polls. My generation doesn't want to grow up in an America where law and order is just some TV show, not the actual standard here in this great country. And that's what we're hearing from people. It's a resounding message. And actually, I've even had dozens of people in the past few weeks as we finish this college campus campus tour up before the summer starts, say, look, my parents voted for Biden in 2020, or I voted for Biden in 2020, and I cannot make that mistake again, and we're seeing that reflect in the polls, and I think it's going to be a historic November.
Is a lot of it the economic issues, or is it also the issues of a dual justice system?
Sure.
What's driving it mostly?
Sure. I think it's a mix of a lot of things.
Yeah?
And I think two really big things happened for my generation, and it was in COVID. I think COVID taught my generation how bad big government was. It showed us how much control the government could have over our lives if we let them have it. And we did that in 2020. We saw that they could make us strap diapers to our face, make us stay in our homes for years at a time, not invite grandma to Thanksgiving because you're a terrible person if you do, not go outside. I mean, we saw, they kept us out of school for a year and a half, Governor. That is the effect directly of big government. My generation's seen that, and we've turned conservative since then. And also this border crisis. My generation doesn't want to grow up in America where our borders are wide open. And I think the Lake and Riley murder, it was brutal, it was violent, and that really was personal to my generation. That was on a college campus in the great state of Georgia that's not a border state. And people saw that, hey, if that can happen somewhere, it can happen to me. This is personal. Biden's policies are directly affecting the American citizens. And ever since then, we've seen a major shift in polling.
I think all of you can now better understand why I think this young man may be president of the United States someday. He's well on his way. This incredible book, written by 17-year-old Brilyn Hollyhand, is called One Generation Away. You need a copy for yourself and every young person that you care about.
We appreciate your endorsement.
Well, thank you. I was happy to endorse it, and I'm one of the folks that is written in a book as an endorser. How do you get the book? Well, go to Huckabee.tv. We will give you links to the book, and you can also learn how to follow Brilyn on all social media platforms.